Welcome, everyone. Today we are talking social casino, and joining us today to talk about this genre are arguably two of the best people, in my opinion, in the world to offer us their pithy insights on what's happening in this category. First, we have Brett Nowak, CEO of firm Liquid and Grit. In my opinion, the best mobile gaming market research report on the market. And just so you guys know, a big Bill Belichick fan.
Representing.
And we also are joined by Lloyd, former executive, having worked on social casino at Zynga and Stars. And currently, Lloyd, you're at Chumba Casino currently, right? And also involved with Merca?
Yeah, I'm on Merca's board. Thanks.
Great. And so I thought we could go ahead and dive right in, and then we can kind of do intros in a bit. But just kind of starting in terms of the discussion, I thought we could first start by asking about, since it's so relevant and timely right now, the impact of the coronavirus pandemic on the category. So in terms of the current impact and potential impact, as you know, if we potentially go into recessionary or a depressionary scenario, what do you guys think is the impact of coronavirus on social casino? Maybe starting with you, Lloyd?
Sure. So what we've seen so far is initially it was a big influx in players, probably, driven by two things. One is, influx of people forced to play more games, forced to stay at home, and then also all the land-based casinos closing. Initially, it probably didn't translate one-to-one into revenue, but you're seeing it's almost a lagging impact, and you are seeing that effect. So in the slot space, very roughly, it's looking like about a 20% increase. It's been bigger for some companies, especially kind of the bigger ones, and the ones who have more of the real life content that people would expect in a casino. But it's actually been, the impact's been huge in poker world, both in real money, where I saw friends from Poker Stars and everything, and in social. You're seeing 50, 100% growth there. And, my hypothesis is that you just have people looking for a social experience. You can still play with your friends. Playing poker is a much more social sport than slots is. But it's been incredible what it's done to the poker world online.
Yeah, and you're when you say growth, that's downloads, those numbers you're talking about, right, Lloyd? Just to be clear.
Well, the 20%, we're actually seeing that now go down into the bottom line, into revenue. Yeah. Initially, it was downloads, but now we're seeing it translate into rev.
Yeah, and on our side, we're seeing the same thing. I mean, the forced isolation and the impact to the real world slots, casinos, and everything have been somewhat tremendous for the social casino world. I mean, it's up in terms of downloads, as Lloyd mentioned, and revenue in slots, bingo, and poker. In our last report, we actually just included some numbers on that: 7% in revenue quarter over quarter for slots, 17% for bingo, and we saw 7.5% quarter over quarter. This is just revenue for poker, but as Lloyd alluded, the revenue will be lagging of the downloads, and the downloads are up tremendously. So I think the numbers, the 20%, let's see, it's 28 in slots, 30 in poker, and 18 in bingo in terms of quarter over downloads. And that was only obviously half of the quarter impact, because much of the isolation happened sort of later in the quarter. So it's actually been very, very positive for the social casino market.
And do you guys think this is a longer term boost to social casino, if people kind of that normally wouldn't have played these games and would have gone to the casino, but now they get used to it? Do you think they go back to the casino even after coronavirus longer term, or what are your longer term impact predictions?
So that's the $1 million question. And you can make arguments either way. One argument is exactly what you've been saying, is that we're going to be able to hold on to a lot of these players. They've been land-based casino players. Now that they've seen what's available in the social casino world, they're going to stay playing on social casino. It won't be at the levels it's at now. One thing I forgot to mention earlier is we saw a huge pop in revenue right after the stimulus checks came out. That's a one-time thing. Right. Yeah, it brought mixed feelings.
We'll see.
But it really, it's driven the revenue, and that probably wouldn't show up in the quarterly numbers because that was in April. But that's really driven the revenue. That's a one-time thing. So, a lot of these players are, now exposed to social, and in many ways, social is a better experience than land-based. You have a bigger variety of games. You have, I hate the word gamification, but I'll use it now because I can't think of anything. But you have the metagame features. You have all the things that the product managers have been able to put in that makes the product more compelling. That you don't have in a land-based casino, progression, all of those great things. So on the one hand, I think it permanently or long-term will lift us up. The counterforce, the one that we really don't know, is the macroeconomic impact.
Right.
We're looking at what, 30%, maybe even 30+% unemployment. If the entire economy contracts, we're talking this, much more than kind of your typical economic downturn or recession, where usually entertainment is counter-cyclical. If people are unemployed, they're not going to be able to purchase in a social casino game. If this lasts long term, then it could bring down everything, and social casino will just not be strong enough to ride it out. I think what the smart companies are doing now is looking at how you're going to consolidate those gains. So, for example, one of the companies I'm involved with, we've refocused our entire VIP team in not necessarily managing the current VIPs, but identifying this new cohort of VIPs, the one who effectively are probably the land-based casino players who are now looking for an alternative, and treating them and giving them VIP treatment, even though they haven't had time to reach true VIP levels. So they know what it's like to be a VIP in a social casino. We're rushing out some loyalty features. I think we're not unique in that. I think the smart social casinos are going to do the same thing, try to lock in as much of the gains as possible. It is going to go back to, there's going to be a new normal. The question is, do we lose all of the gains and everyone just goes back to their old habits? Are we able to lock in some of them? I think we're somewhere in between there. And then the macro factor over that is just how bad the economic carnage is after this.
Yeah, my own hypothesis in terms of like what you're speaking to with respect to new normal, and given the current potentially recessionary, depressionary types of scenarios, is that you have to shift your game if you want to maximize revenue to higher conversion, lower whale behavior, so lower ARPU.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what's going to help some of these games increase revenue over time. But that's just my own hypothesis.
Well, it's actually what we're seeing. So our VIP revenue is relatively flat. It's our, what we call premium tiers and core tiers. So it's the non-VIP players. In part, just talking to our VIP team, our VIPs have been hit hard by this. A lot of them are kind of, wealthy entrepreneurs or sole practitioner type businesses. And some of them have just been very vulnerable. Whereas the mass base, you have a lot of people who can spend an extra $20, $50, $100. So we're seeing exactly what you're predicting.
Great. So just kind of getting a higher level picture in terms of the category, and certainly.
Well, Joseph, I actually want to jump in here because I actually disagree a little bit with some of your predictions. I'm more bullish on the market, so I'm gonna heat this up. Let's get this going, guys.
Let's do it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm more bullish on it. So I think in the short term, obviously we're seeing this spike. I think it's gonna decline a little bit, as it has in the past when we've seen unexpected spikes, right? When new games come out that introduce new players to social gaming in general, or new platforms or whatever, it'll flatten out a little bit, which we're already seeing, but it'll be a higher level, a higher baseline level. I think it's going to sustain. I'm fairly confident it's going to sustain the 6 to 18 months, because I just don't feel like people are going to want to go back to the real money casinos. They're not going to want to travel. If it's not forced isolation, it's going to be some type of selective isolation or preferred isolation, right? I mean, you're just talking about how many people over 60 are going to want to be flying to Las Vegas for the next 2 years until we have a vaccine for this. I mean, I can only imagine that that's going to be massively decreased. So you're going to see those players sustain for, again, I think that's 6 to 18 months at the minimum. Mm-hmm. Then you have that period for social casino games to do what, as Lloyd mentioned, is to just basically convince them that the social experience is a better experience.
Right.
which I think does happen. We've interviewed whales from different games of social casino, and that's been their take away from playing and living in Las Vegas. We interview a lot of people who live in Las Vegas, and they don't even go to any of the strip because they prefer now the mobile experience. So I think that'll help sustain the revenue. I also think that the recession will actually help social gaming and social casino and even mobile gaming. We're already seeing that. If you look at, there was a New York Times article that just launched in terms of US spending increases and decreases. The top two things that people increased their spending on were groceries, so online grocery, and gaming. And they were basically neck and neck in terms of the most increased in spend. So then there's good reason for it. Gaming is, I think, if not the best, one of the best. I would put, top three best entertainment sources per dollar in the world.
Yeah.
So I think that people are going to want to be entertained. Entertainment isn't something that people turn off or on. I mean, particularly in a recession when they're at home or if they don't have a job, they're going to want to be distracted even more. The stimulus checks will obviously help the short-term bumps or whatever. And then if they're unemployed, the unemployment checks will, sadly also help as well. But the more expensive entertainment sources, which are basically, I mean, anecdotally, I can tell you that we spend much more on other sources and even the streaming, if you add up all the streaming, ends up being $100 or $150. A gaming, you can spend $5, $10, $15, $20 a month on and get almost near endless amount of entertainment from an unbelievable experience from a game that's higher or the same quality as a movie or any other source of entertainment. So I'm much more bullish than a lot of people out there. I think that this is going to be very impactful, not to mention introducing more and more people to gaming in general, making mobile gaming just more part of our culture and less of this niche type of thing that we've thought it as. So that's my,
okay.
Let's go.
All right. So maybe just taking a step back and just looking at the social casino category, kind of higher level, I think, so there was this boost from coronavirus and the current situation, but before that, could we talk about how was the category generally performing? When we think about some of the news in the fairly recent past, we've seen some moves such as huge diversifying from social casino, similarly with Playtika, for example, when they acquired Seriously. So based on the interpretation of some of the moves that the bigger players were making and some of their actions, it would seem that maybe social casino was not as attractive as a category as before. Or could you guys help us understand how we should be interpreting some of that news and just the general performance of the category generally?
I mean, I can go, Lloyd, or if you want to jump in,
Go for
it.
Go ahead.
Go first. Go ahead.
Oh.
Okay,
yeah, go ahead, Lloyd. I just chatted for a while. You go ahead.
Yeah. I was just going to say, I think it's not as sexy as it used to be. It's not the huge growth engine it was maybe 4 or 5 years ago, which was driving all the M&A activity in the space. But it's still growing. Yeah, it's probably high single digits growth. What I found most interesting, and it's probably one of the reasons that you have seen the Huges and the Playtikas diversify out of it. Most of the growth has been coming out of better monetization of existing players. You're not seeing the DAU, the category, growing in terms of users, but you have been seeing steady growth overall and growth from probably the savvier companies, the Playtikas, the Product Madness. I'll put a plug in for Merca, but a lot of that is they've been doing that with really good product management, improving the features and everything. Much of the DAU has been coming from if one company grows, they're probably taking it from someone else. It hasn't been that they've been able to grow the category, and that's what's made it a little less sexy, probably on the M&A front. Why people haven't been coming into it at the velocity they were, let's say 2015, 2016.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I mean, I think it is sexy. I would personally want to have a top grossing casino app right now. I mean, but it's less sexy because they're so consistent, right? And they're what McKinsey or whomever consulting firm created, it would be like the cash cow, right? So they're a great thing to have in a company because they allow you to go out there and invest in new things and diversify like you're seeing and what you're referencing, because you have this stable revenue source that is not likely to go away anytime soon. So I think it's been this way for a while. It's a difficult place to break into for obvious reasons, not featuring. They're difficult apps to create. They're niche. You have to have a very specific skill set to create them. But if you do break in, and every couple of years we do see a company break in, like we have in the past 2 years, and we did 4 years ago or 5 years ago with Huge, and we did before that with Merca. Every couple of years there is a new entrance into the market. It's few and far between, but when they do enter, I mean, they obviously become huge winners. So, yeah, it's a difficult place, but it's kind of sexy in a slow moving, very steady and consistent way.
Got it. And so I thought we could just take a quick break from the discussion to go over your backgrounds and intros. And Lloyd, maybe starting with you, could you tell us a little bit about your career?
Yeah, so I've been in the gaming space. I was actually figuring it out today because it's been too many years to remember, since 1993. So I've been in the gaming space from the old CD-ROM days of packaged goods to the download games that you would see on real networks or on Big Fish, to when social gaming first started to take off. And yeah, I had started a company in 93. We then sold that company when social gaming took off to Playdom. For those of you who remember social gaming, Playdom was kind of the Zynga of MySpace, for better or for worse. It was acquired by Disney after that, so I was at Disney a while. Ended up going into social casino, and that was a social casino company. I was acquired by Zynga. Worked at helped start up. Zynga already obviously was used in social casino on the poker side. I was one of the senior people over at Hit It Rich, which became their big slots offering, and it's now kind of blossomed into that the whole Zynga social casino space. Then moved over to run social at PokerStars as they were moving from real money into social. And a year ago went over to VGW to run their Chumba Casino product, which is a social casino with a sweepstakes offering. So it's sort of like Slotomania meets Publishers Clearinghouse.
Right. And you also wrote this book, right, Lloyd?
Oh, that's embarrassing. But yeah, no. Yeah, I did.
I liked it.
No, I've always been interested. I'm not an analytics guy, but I've obviously, being in the social space, you always have to understand analytics and numbers. And I think everything in social casino in the gaming space comes down to increasing your lifetime value. So that was kind of like the other title for that, but it would have been a copyright issue. Would have been lifetime value for dummies. So,
all right, Brett.
Yeah, I haven't been in gaming as long as Lloyd, but I've been in gaming for, now it's got to be 13, 14 years, which is kind of incredible. I was in Seattle. I worked for Pete Parsons for a little bit, who is the CEO of Bungie Studios, and that sort of introduced me to gaming. And then I went to business school at Dartmouth Business School Tuck, and landed at the time, a relatively unknown company in San Francisco called Zynga, as an intern, and ended up actually staying there pre-IPO, working there, and then working there for almost 2 years. Had a great experience at Zynga, and then moved on to a smaller gaming company, Blue Shell Games, to be their director of product. I was in Zynga Poker, lead product manager of revenue. And then when I was at both those companies, I felt like there wasn't a lot of support for product managers, and we were doing a lot to cover the market, learn what's driving revenue, learn what's happening on the platforms and whatnot. And so based on that, I decided to start my own company, Liquid and Grit, that supplies product managers, product owners, game designers, VPs with monthly reports and tools to better manage their games and increase their revenue. So that's kind of my short version of my gaming experience.
Awesome. So going back to the discussion, so Brett, you and I kind of worked together on a social casino project, number of years back. And at least at that time, when I was in terms of the slots market, at the time, it seemed like if we were to categorize that market, you would think about it as sort of land-based games, which were the slots games that were as similar to the land-based real life games as possible, the social focus games like the big fish casinos, and then the kind of an emerging new category at the time, RPG progression. So there was Merca's scatter slots. I don't know if that category has expanded or not, but in terms of slots, since it's the biggest category within social casino, can you guys help us understand how we should be kind of characterizing the various categories there? Is that still the sort of categorization, or was that not the categorization? What do you guys think?
I think it's probably very subjective. The way I probably look at it, it's not that different, but instead of RPG, I'd almost say linear or progression-based slots. So you have a game like, the Game of Thrones title that recently came out. Pharaoh's Way was one of the ones in the early days, as well as scatter slots. So you kind of have a game that's more of a game. Then you have kind of the lobby-based, which you could be either two ways, kind of a locked lobby, which was most products, be it Jackpot Party or one of the Aristocrat games, where you open it up. You start with 3 or 5 slots, and you've progressed through that. And then you had the open lobby, which kind of doubled down, made famous. I think when a few years ago, you were probably right in the distinction between the ones that had a more of a real money feel and the ones that had more of a socially feel. I think now most of the slots, the quality has gone up where they're as good or better than what you see in the land-based or the real money world in Europe. Maybe the other category that's evolved, you mentioned Big Fish, and at the time and for years, I always considered it just an outlier. It was a product in and of itself because the slots were kind of awful compared to everyone else, yet the ARPDAO and the performance was great. But now you have Huge and you have some other companies. So I would consider those like truly social products that are, by the way, a casino. They're almost like Facebook meets slots. So now I guess to summarize, kind of going back to what you're saying, you still have the linear ones, you still have ones doing really well. Scatter slots continues to, but like Game of Thrones, I think is the one of the biggest new products. Then you have kind of the lobby-based ones, and then I would say you have the ones that are a cross between a social network and a slot. That's not an official designation, and I'm probably the only person who would break them down that way. I'm actually really interested to hear what Brett has to say, how he splits out the category.
I think that's a pretty good summary of the category. I mean, the land-based content machines, slots games, that's one. The progression, which you mentioned, is more of that slotomania type feel. Then we have RPG progression. Merca would probably just be standing there by itself with that one game. So that would be somewhat of a smaller subgenre. And then the other that I added were the real world prize games, which was really kind of owned by Play Studios, and VGW has kind of tapped into that in their own way as well. And then probably a smaller subset of the real money gaming is the classic machines, the classic apps, which would be like the DGNs and the Rocket or Penn International now owned apps would be sort of like the big five that I would probably categorize as.
Got it. Okay, great. So kind of maybe moving on, a closely related category to social casino is real money gaming. Can you guys talk about maybe some thoughts in terms of how that category is doing, and then more about the potential impact of real money gaming to social casino?
I think it's the latter that's probably the most interesting. So real money gaming, obviously it's legal in Europe, it's regulated in Europe, and numbers wise, social casino had the market share or the growth in Europe that it has in the US. So correlation does not prove causality. There could be a lot of different factors. Most of the social casino companies are American. The slot mechanics play much better for an American audience. So that might not be the case. But before coronavirus, you already had several states opening up for online casinos. So you had New Jersey, Nevada, Delaware, which were the original ones, but now Pennsylvania and Michigan. And that was actually a big change with Pennsylvania and Michigan opening up, because and they've seen phenomenal growth on real money. So just this week, I think Stars Group announced that they have a 27% increase on their quarterly earnings. And some of it was coronavirus driven, but that was also negated to a degree by the loss from sports. So a lot of that growth is from the US, because their other markets are really flat. Real money gaming is a very mature market in Europe, which, so they're seeing, states like Michigan and Pennsylvania really pick up the slack for what they're losing everywhere else. And that's only 2 states, but between Michigan, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, you're talking 3 of the 13 largest states. That has to cut into social casino revenue at some point. These are, the biggest VIPs in social casino are ones who spend time at land-based casinos. It's probably why we're seeing this strong growth now due to coronavirus and the casinos being closed. Will those people continue to migrate over and learn how great social casino is when they have a real money option? And real money companies are literally spending hundreds of millions of dollars on user acquisition. Even if we're able to keep the LTVs as they are in social, it might become unaffordable to acquire players. So I see it as a potentially big impact. And then kind of going to that first comment about how coronavirus impacts it. Well, every state is going to be spending a ton to spend we already see it with the stimulus package to see its way out of this recession. I think that's just how the government is planning on reacting. We're already seeing that across the world. If governments are spending at the levels that they're spending, they're going to be looking for revenue. And gaming is a huge revenue source already for New Jersey. Pennsylvania is getting addicted to it, and the European countries are. So does that mean the New Yorks, the Californias start opening it up? You get a much broader acceptance of real money gaming in the US, and then it does become a true competitor to social. The good news for social operators is you look at DraftKings and FanDuel, when real money opened up, those are the top 1 and 2 sports betting companies now, because they have the brand recognition. So does that mean Playtika, Aristocrat, all of the social companies are then going to be able to either form partnerships with or get acquired by real money companies because of the crossover in their player base? It's probably a bigger opportunity than it is a negative, but I think it is going to be a huge impact on the social casino world in the next 2, 3, 4 years.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know if well, a couple 2 things. One is I think that I'm not as worried about the real money gaming impacting social. I mean, just because if you look back at sort of like Black Friday, for example, in the US when poker was made illegal, I mean, that wasn't like a massive growth opportunity for Zynga poker or social poker in general. So you didn't see them just like jump over to social. And at this point, it's been long enough that if you're a social player, you're probably still going to be a social player, even if, you haven't been sitting around for 5 years waiting for real money to come back. You've probably figured out some way to be, pretend like you're in some other country and you're gambling already. And I generally just don't feel like those players are overlapping with the social that was already established. I actually think it's more, so I'm not as concerned about that. Obviously the competition, the UA dollars is going to be something that would be a negative. I think the biggest positive for me is where our society draws the line in the sand as to what is appropriate for online gaming. And without having real money gaming in US, the next thing in line was honestly social casino, or pretty much next, right? And the reintroduction of real money gaming has basically moved that line in the sand further away from social casino. And in that way, I think it's actually de-risked social casino tremendously, and that I think that's a positive, right? Because these black swan events can be positive and negative, and I'm often writing about these concerns. One being platform concerns, the other that's been really fairly scary or important for social casino has been government concerns. We've seen stuff in Washington. We've seen stuff just in gaming in general, loot boxes in Europe and beyond. And that rhetoric, that voice of government basically, or of society, switches and goes back and forth, and the introduction of real money gaming kind of like moves it away from social gaming. So in that way, I think it's very positive.
Great. So maybe we can now talk trends. And Brett, I know you track features, but whether it's from like a feature perspective, like newer trends from features, or bigger like macro trends, it'd be interesting to see what your thoughts are in terms of where the market is headed. And then what do you guys think are like the key bases of competition moving into the future?
Well, we already hit on the growth in the market, and that being obviously a trend. In terms of the new entrants, as I mentioned before, there's every couple years, despite what all the analysts say and how difficult it is, every couple years there's a new company that jumps into the space and grows pretty massively. I mean, we're seeing it now with Bowl Games. I mean, they've entered the market and they have now 2 apps in the top 25 grossing, and they're crushing it. They're growing massively quarter over quarter. We saw it a couple years ago with Huge. We saw it with Rocket Games. We saw it with Merca. We saw it, so we've seen it happen, and it doesn't happen as maybe often because you don't have featuring by Apple. So you don't have that like shooting star moment where people just come out of nowhere, but you do have new entrants come in. I think your question of how do they approach this market was the follow-up. And I think what we've seen in the market of people who've been successful is they've been very positionally focused, meaning they've targeted a certain app or apps and gone after them directly. Huge Casino did that with Big Fish. W did that against Double Down. We're seeing Bowl do that against Slotomania and other Playtika apps. So, I mean, it's, as Lloyd mentioned earlier, it's a bit of a red ocean strategy where if you're going to enter the market, like you better be ready to go and take some players from somebody else. And I think that's actually just generally the mindset that you probably should have if you're entering mobile gaming in any genre. But in casino, I think it's even a little bit more appropriate.
Brett, so just to follow up on that, when we're talking like specific product trends, it isn't so much that there are new features or new kind of product strategy, but it's looking at existing games and doing what they're already doing a little bit better with a new product. Is that the right way to think about it?
If you're entering the market, that's what you're at. I mean, there's actually a lot more product innovation in casino than people in the outside world think. I mean, I actually didn't think that until we started covering puzzle and RPG, and I actually think that casino is right up there, if not ahead of those other genres in terms of innovation. It actually has been really surprising. I thought, wow, RPG is super innovative. It has all these like amazing mechanics, and puzzle has all this stuff. Casino does a lot, and I might be biased because I've been in casino longer, but I really don't think so. I mean, they actually have the ability to innovate, I think, even more. And I was on Zynga Poker and experienced this because you have such a consistent revenue source. It actually allows you to spend more time with ideas that are somewhat like out there. Whereas these other genres are much more of a content cadence, and they're just so much more resources focused on like getting out the next whatever it is that they got to get out for content. Whereas in casino, it's pretty established what the content is. It's slot machines or it's poker or it's a bingo, a new bingo room. So I think in terms of answering your question, we've categorized sort of like 2 approaches that we've seen. One being the focused approach. This is for the red ocean strategy. Focus meaning like you're going to take an existing app that's out there and you're going to give a simplified version of it. We saw this with Poker Heat relative to Zynga Poker. That's a great example of it. The other is what we call the +1, which is you take an existing app and you tweak one thing, but you offer a lot of what they have. And we're seeing that with Bowl Games against like Slotomania. And as much as some people might want to think Bowl Games isn't innovative, when you do go look at their machines and their content, they're not just fast following the Slotomania and other apps in there. They're doing a lot of the same things, but they are definitely tweaking them, iterating on them, and changing things to see what players like in addition to what they're already getting. So those are really the red ocean strategies that we see be successful in the market.
Okay. What?
Yeah, I agree with Brett. I mean, I think because it is so much of a red ocean, it's driving some of these features and some of these innovations that Brett mentioned, because it's the only way you can grow. And as we were saying earlier, the market is growing. It's growing because they are getting better at monetization, but they're getting better at monetization by putting in better features. It's really the only way to grow, but the market's big enough that it justifies the investment. It's bringing in a lot of the top product talent, and it is, you know, it's an arms race with some very well armed companies. My only other thing here is, you know, we're talking a lot about red ocean, and I think it is a red ocean, but this is where I know Brett will disagree. But you do have products like a CoinMaster that takes some casino mechanics and almost create, you know, maybe it's a totally different category. And I do think that's going to continue also. I think, you know, underlying gaming mechanics drive a lot. A, they're very good at monetization, and B, they've been around over 100 years. You know, they hit on things that are very important to people. So taking the core of social casino mechanics, slot mechanics, or a poker mechanic, it lends itself to creating another really compelling game type, like, again, like a CoinMaster. And, you know, I think CoinMaster now would probably be the #2 social casino if it's classified in that category. I would classify it there, others wouldn't. But even if it's not, I think you're going to see more game mechanics borrowed from social casino and maybe merged with RPG or other gaming categories, you know, to create great new products. Do you count them as social casino products? Do you not count them? It doesn't really matter. But you are going to see new products coming out that generate a ton of revenue, that are based on social casino mechanics, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would actually agree with that, Lloyd. And I think that's what's so hard about being an analyst in this market, is that most of the significant growth is driven by things that are completely unexpected. And the COVID-19 being a clear example of that. And then the next game, like CoinMaster or whatever it is going to be the next example of that. That's going to be nearly impossible to predict. Merca did that with their games. I mean, no one but Merca would have predicted that their games would have worked. So I do agree. I was just kind of giving the examples. I think the red ocean strategies are probably safer bets, but there is opportunity to grow the market and use the mechanics that are so proven, and implement them in a different way. And I will call out too, I mean, we're just kind of focusing on slots. I mean, the bingo market has had very strong growth lately, and we're seeing like new entrants come in with tons of new innovations that are,
about new game releases, Lloyd, you had mentioned Game of Thrones by Zynga. Could you talk about some of the more notable recent launches and how they've been doing?
Actually, I probably defer to Brett, because, you know,
Okay.
Game of Thrones is the one that I'm very aware of, and it's been doing
Right.
very well. You know, but it has been, you know, except for the couple of exceptions that Brett mentioned earlier, it has been a relatively stable business. You know, the top 10, you know, you might have one change every 2 years.
Got it.
yeah, I mean, like, it's exactly, I mean, every 2 years there's a new entrant, but it takes 2 years in social games. So it's a little bit, actually, I don't even know. I mean, if you look at puzzle, I'm trying to think of what we've seen in puzzle be the new company in that market, but bowl games being the newest in social casino. I mean, they've come out with 2 games that are now top 25, Cash Frenzy and Lots of Slots. They have a just tremendous production team. I mean, they're out of China and they're cranking out content and features and events. I mean, just unbelievable output of content. And that's, again, they're competing on the +1 strategy. I mean, they're getting heavily influenced by what's already out there and then tweaking things, but they have just an amazing output. And so they're growing massively in the market.
Got it. So final question then, in terms of like, if we were to speculate a bit in terms of the social casino category, do you guys have any specific predictions for whether it's the rest of 2020 or 2021? What happens from here on out? And also maybe if you have any controversial or or surprising predictions. I'd love to hear, what you guys think.
I think there's
Well,
enough data and, oh, I'm sorry.
no, go
Go
ahead,
ahead, Bray.
Lloyd. No,
I
you
was
go
going to
ahead.
say, I
Sorry.
think there's enough data and history that it probably won't be that surprising. You're going to
Okay.
see growth. I think because of COVID, as we were talking at the beginning, it's going to spike. There's going to be a new normal. Is it going to be, so instead of seeing that single digit growth, you'll probably see something in the teens. And I do agree with Brett. It will sustain. Probably won't sustain at the level it's at now, but it'll, as I said, probably end up in the teens. I'm not going to try to predict the macroeconomic factors. As we were just saying, someone will come out of the blue, and there will be another, a new company in the top 10, who wasn't there before, but just one in the next couple of years. I don't think. I'd be surprised if you see more than one or two big M&A transactions. The space does seem to have been cooled off. Again, I'd be surprised. There might be someone who tries to move in. As we said earlier, you have kind of the different parts of the social casino space. Just maybe someone who's doesn't have one of the progression slots, wants to acquire one of the companies that is strong in that area to round out their portfolio, especially if they can't grow. But you'll see, it's like Brett was saying earlier, it's not. It's exciting in that it's not exciting. It's good, strong, consistent growth, which, even before the last few months was something, most CEOs would get excited about. You're going to continue to see it. It's a good category. It's going to continue to grow. It's going to continue to grow largely because of monetization, but now we are going to see a spike in new users from the virus. And I think that will sustain. But it is a red ocean, so you're not going to see any fundamental changes in terms of product, in terms of user activity in the next couple of years, in my opinion.
Great.
Yeah, I would agree with what Lloyd said. I mean, a couple maybe controversial things. I think the companies in social casino are going to continue to do very well just because they have this cash cow, and they are very innovative companies. I mean, I would put Playtika up there as one of the most innovative mobile gaming companies in the world. And they're not going to sit around and not figure out how to grow. I mean, you're already seeing it with their M&A, and they also have divisions that are experimenting in other genres. So I think they're well positioned to grow because they can afford to take the shots because they have the revenue and profit coming in from this one genre, whereas other companies that aren't as stable in terms of their revenue are going to have a harder time branching out, which you're seeing that in other genres as well. I think the other thing that is maybe controversial is I'm much more bullish than most people on mobile gaming market, even in a very deep recession. I think it's dangerous. Having been in mobile gaming for a long time, I think it's really dangerous to apply too much logic to human behavior. And I think that's what a lot of analysts are doing when they say, oh, mobile gaming revenue is going to go down because people aren't going to have as much money. That is just like the way too logical of a statement, right? Like those dots are just, those are not dots that human beings make. I mean, let's just be honest. We're not as logically acting as we all pretend like we are. And I think that the recession, the stimulus, the isolation, the fear of going out and interacting with other people, and the quality of mobile gaming, the quality entertainment source per dollar of mobile gaming will make revenue, downloads, engagement all go up. I mean, revenue will fall. Revenue is kind of the easy part, right? Like downloads is the hard part. That's the hard part. Once we have people playing, like figuring out how to monetize them is completely within our control. But so I'm very bullish on the mobile gaming market at this point, and I think that's controversial. I've seen some articles being posted, and I've hesitated to be like responding to them. Like I've written paragraphs being like, are you like how I mean, at the end of the day, we have to understand that the iPhone is a Game Boy for adults. I mean, over 70% of the revenue going into that thing is an IAP purchased in a mobile game. That's a Game Boy. And now we have some revenue from streaming, which is, as I mentioned, way more expensive than mobile gaming entertainment. And then you have some other stuff. You have some like little stuff. that means that it's a Game Boy for people who are sitting at home isolated. Now they're also getting introduced to how effective it is to keep their kids entertained. As you saw my kid come out and ask for my phone because he wants to play Clash or Roblox or whatever he wants to play. That's just going to increase engagement, revenue, purchases, acceptance of mobile gaming. And so, yeah, I mean, I think my most controversial is just I'm way more bullish on what's going to happen in mobile gaming in the next 1 to 3 years. Honestly, I see this being as just tremendously positive. So,
Yeah, I will say that to your point about kids, I've anecdotally seen a lot more like parents let their kids play games because they're sick and tired of trying to take care of them at home. But
not only that, I mean, the alternative is YouTube or Netflix, where they just sit there staring at it, as opposed to my son is a huge Clash player, as am I, and
yeah,
he's talking about trading cards, what
yeah.
cards are more
Modern day chess.
powerful. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
he's understanding the concepts of it. He understands clans, teams, what events, how to how to basically optimize how much he's going to spend on different things. He doesn't, and then as a parent, I'm buying a $4.99 battle pass once a month, and I don't even need to do that, right? I mean, and then we're having conversations back and forth about it, as opposed to him watching some Russian girl open up packages of toys for like 3 hours on YouTube. I mean, right? I mean, what are the other, or paying $20 a month for Disney Plus, or buying a movie that's going to last 2 hours. And then of course he's going to go outside and play and all that stuff. But yeah, it's just such a good entertainment source. I mean, that's the thing that I don't think we're giving ourselves enough props. I mean, we've created a really amazing entertainment source, like an unbelievable, that you can actually do for free if you want for all this time. I mean, that's kind of incredible. I don't think we give ourselves enough credit. We're always saying, wow, games this, games that, but like there's no other entertainment source out there that's giving as high quality entertainment for next to nothing. I mean, that's pretty amazing. So.
All right, guys. And with that, I think that's basically it for today. But maybe in conclusion, if you guys have any message for the audience, and it'd be great if you could let folks know how to contact you, maybe starting with you, Lloyd.
Well, I think the message is for everyone to stay safe. That's the most important thing right now. And, keep your spirits up. This is going to be ending. It's already, you already see it kind of winding down in some places. More important than the game industry, more important than anything else is just, everything will be, better in the future. In terms of gaming, and if anyone's interested in reaching out to me, my email is melnick, MELNICK .Lloyd, LLOYD @gmail.com. And I have a blog, lloydmelnick.com. More than happy to go in there. If there's anything that's interesting, feel free to put comments or even suggestions what I should be writing about. And thank you, Joe, for the opportunity to be on your podcast.
No problem. Brett?
Yeah, I agree with Lloyd as always, or not as always, but in this case again, and that be healthy and stay safe is obviously most important. And secondly, I think this is a great opportunity for mobile gaming companies to take advantage of. Typically, growth in gaming is driven by these somewhat chaotic, unexpected events. So one of my messages would be not to just sit around and wait for the dust to settle, but to capitalize on what is going on. And then I want to also say, the mobile gaming has a bright long-term future, and that everyone should be responsible in how they act and produce games and think about the player and the longevity of the relationship we have with our players, and the opportunity that we've had to create games as a profession is one that's amazing, and we should really try to protect that and do what's right for for players, and at this point for human beings, just all of human beings, because so many people are playing games. And then, if you want to reach me, you can email me at brett.novak@liquidandgrit.com, or you can on LinkedIn connect with me. It's spelled NOWAK, the last name, or visit liquidandgrit.com and check us out. But love to hear from other people, and always happy to talk about games.
All right, awesome. Well, thanks so much, guys. And that's a wrap for today. All right, bye.
Thank you. Bye.